The city of McAllen has said, earlier this week that there was going to be a new international flight. And so in our office, we were actually taking bets. I actually won because...
Monterrey. We also know it's important to the leisure travel community because people from Mexico love to come to McAllen and shop, which is why when we made the announcement this morning, I took advantage of the venue, the setting, to talk about our March sales tax numbers, which again, were record-setting. Sales tax money goes to drive the special projects that we do and economic development. We've got some really exciting announcements coming in the next week about some industry that's coming to the Valley that hasn't been here yet. But we know that with this first one that there are going to be more and more to come. And what we're going to talk about next week will be the largest industrial investment in Hidalgo County in decades.
Welcome to the Rio Grande Valley Business Journal's podcast. Thanks for joining us. We have a special guest today. We have Isaac Tawil, the city manager of McAllen. Thanks for joining us.
Absolutely. How are you today, Kristen?
I'm really good. Thank you. And so, initially when we booked this, we wanted to just talk about retail sales, retail growth in McAllen. But
all right.
Y'all have some pretty big news today. And so I kind of wanted to hop on that for a second.
Well, I'll tell you where to buy a ticket. How about that?
Yeah. So, the city of McAllen has said, earlier this week that there was going to be a new international flight. And so in our office, we were actually taking bets about which city it might be. And so at first I was like, San Luis Potosí. And then I was like, Monterrey, certainly not Mexico City, because we're sort of still waiting on that one, right? But I actually won because...
Monterrey.
Mm-hmm.
There you go.
Yeah. And so how long did that deal take? Was it something that kind of fell into your lap, or is it something that was on kind of your to-do list?
Well, I hope it didn't fall on my lap. The airplanes are pretty heavy. That would have hurt. But I wanted to fly here. They reached out to us, and they've been reaching out to us for the better part of a year. They needed to secure assets to make sure that they had the capacity to service us daily like they want to, and we think our travelers wanted. But it was an easy deal to make. They're a fantastic group of leaders that are running the airline, and they've got some strong incentives to use them. So for our travelers, immediately, it's the connectivity to Mexico, to Monterrey, and the business routes, the people looking for a little bit easier connection between Monterrey and McAllen, and we have people making that trip by car, and maybe they'll make the drive and wind up having to stay a night in one city or the other, but for the person looking for the easier up and back. Not having to worry about driving on the highways and getting here safely, concerned about activity along the border. It eliminates that hurdle. And so we know that's important to the business community. We also know it's important to the leisure travel community because people from Mexico love to come to McAllen and shop, which is why when we made the announcement this morning, I took advantage of the venue, the setting, to talk about our March sales tax numbers, which again were record-setting.
Yeah, historically, we've had a really long relationship with Mexican national shoppers, particularly in McAllen. I understand in 2025, y'all hit a pretty significant milestone. I think, if I'm accurate, almost $100 million. And so,
if you need the exact number we were off by, you can watch the mayor's clip from State of the City. He'll remind you.
Yeah, it's like $900.
It's like $18,000.
Yeah, short of $100 million. And so, what does that mean to a city like McAllen? Like, how can you sort of maybe use that money to reinvest in economic development or improve quality of life?
Well, we absolutely use all of that money to reinvest in economic development and quality of life. General fund money, which is raised by the ad valorem tax that the city levies, in its totality is used to fund public safety, government services, and some of our culture and recreation. But the sales tax money goes to drive the special projects that we do and economic development. So some of the money from sales tax gets paid to the Development Corporation of McAllen, whose purpose is to drive economic development and provide incentives and other tools that we use to attract businesses, industry, retail, and services that support the growth of those to come to McAllen.
Yeah, and it's interesting because McAllen has had a really long history. We have La Plaza Mall, and for folks who remember like the malls of the 80s, I think those floors are like Italian marble. Like there was a big investment, right, in the retail experience in this region. But with all of the online shopping and things like that, what do you think about McAllen retail has sort of kept people coming to brick and mortar?
Confidence, trust, especially with the international shoppers. They know that the products they're buying are genuine. They know that their money is going to purchase the products that they want. And the uniqueness of them. A lot of our local retailers have specialty items that aren't available online, and if they are available online, they're available online directly through the local retailers. So having those unique, high-quality products, things that people seek. The mall is incredibly comfortable and has diverse offerings, and is very popular with the international shoppers. And knowing that the quality of the product and the genuineness of the product is going to be guaranteed.
That's really interesting. And, it's funny, when IKEA opened right there on the border between McAllen and Pharr, I remember asking them, like, don't you think it's a little too small? I mean, just because, like, we have so much demand, we have so much in-person shopping, like, we probably could fill the demand of a large IKEA. And, it sounded like it was a bit of a pilot for them, that they're essentially going to test this out. And I've heard anecdotally that, there's a lot of folks who, come across the border and want to buy the floor model, basically, because, they are shopping in person. And, the ability to, like IKEA, for example, doesn't ship internationally, right? Like if you buy it at the store, like they can't send it to another address over the border. And, I just thought that was really interesting. And, I kind of wonder maybe that might help, the growth of us as like a shopping mecca.
It certainly doesn't hurt. And it's also not uncommon that when a new company is coming to a market, they will do exactly what you said. And that is put a smaller store, test the market, make sure they're going to see the success they want, and then depending on what the demand looks like, expand. I would anticipate that IKEA will be looking to do that. They will do well here.
Yeah, and y'all are also backing a lot of new retail development across the city. You have McAllen City Center, which is where the former McAllen Civic Center was. Mm-hmm. And which has been replaced by performing arts. And then you have the Bowie development. And so how does that kind of fit into the city's strategy when it comes to growing the retail base?
I'm super excited about McAllen City Center and what the developer of that site is doing. I think that's probably, in terms of retail opportunity, the best corner in McAllen. You're on 10th Street in the Expressway, blocks from the mall, blocks from what Bowie will be. And so to see what the developer wants to put there in terms of hotels, retail, office space, not quite fully mixed use, but that diverse offering, and some what I think are going to be some very unique, both gastronomical and retail spaces there. That's going to be a great development. And Bowie is really the next phase of what I think development in McAllen and the Rio Grande Valley looks like. It's going to be our first time to support what is going to be a real mixed-use, walkable community that offers everything from retail, culture and recreation, entertainment. We've got plans to put up to a couple of full-service five-star hotels there, residential housing, both condominium style and single-family. So a real mixed-use development, and I think that'll serve as a model for what developments around the area look like. I think it's interesting to talk to kind of the up-and-coming generation, my children, and how they like to live their lives. My kids, and I think it's true for a lot of people, like living in urban areas where they have access to everything. They're walking distance to restaurants, they're walking distance to entertainment, they're walking distance to shopping. Maybe they drive or commute to work, but living in that area where they can enjoy nightlife and enjoy their time at home in the evening, enjoy the weekends, and not be strapped to a car for transportation, I think is what people are looking for. And so we'll see how that development turns out. What we as a city focus on is making sure that the infrastructure to support these developments are there and ready to go. And that's, I think, where McAllen excels the most. We have consistently and will continue to invest and reinvest into the infrastructure we offer developers in terms of our roadways, in terms of our drainage, in terms of our ability to provide water, making sure that the resources are there for the developments to be successful.
Mm-hmm. And that Bowie development, I understand, will be probably about a $230 million project.
Yeah.
I understand that the request for proposals went out, a couple months ago. Are y'all close to negotiating with a developer?
We are negotiating with a developer. Wow, I got really excited when I said that. We are currently negotiating with a developer. He took plans that were offered as potential development options in the RFP and worked those into what he thinks is a viable project. He's in the process of polishing those up for a presentation to the commission, and if the visions align, then we look forward to executing a contract with him and getting started on that project.
Wow, so it sounds like that is really on the horizon, something for folks to look forward to, and I understand that it's actually near the airport, just to kind of circle that back around.
It's right around the corner from the airport, it's right around the corner from the mall, yeah.
Mm-hmm. And we have the FIFA World Cup coming to Monterrey. They mentioned that, as one of the connectors. Now they do have connectivity from Brownsville to Monterrey and from Laredo to Monterrey, but they mentioned the McAllen flight was actually their first choice, and so they've been working for 3 years to try and secure that connection. And they mentioned that it was. I spoke with their CEO of Airbus, Javier Herrera, today, and he was just saying that, some people may look at it on a map and they're like, well, it's like a 3-hour drive, or maybe 4-hour bus ride. But once you hit that international bridge, if it's a high traffic season, like when they're going to start during like Semana Santa, you could be on that bridge waiting to process through customs for 2 to 3 hours. And so for that reliability and that consistency, it kind of sounded like that they were really bullish on this direct, nonstop daily flight that I'm told is only 45 minutes in the air.
Yeah.
I mean, compared to hours and hours or having to fly to Houston to fly back down.
Well, and think about it, right? So it's 45 minutes and it accomplishes everything that you just mentioned and so much more because of their code share agreements. So you're 45 minutes to a connecting flight to anywhere in Mexico, anywhere Mexico's largest airline flies. So it's a real golden opportunity for somebody not only looking for the business traveler, looking for the easy connectivity between McAllen and Monterrey, but also the leisure traveler looking for connectivity to the resort destinations in Mexico.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I know y'all lost the ability to have the Aeromexico flights. That you had that as a nonstop daily. I understand that the city is still pushing to essentially bring that back. Petition the Department of Transportation, because you had mentioned that it's a pretty significant economic development driver. The airport generates what, $1.2 billion?
$1.2 billion of economic impact regionally. The flight to Mexico City performed extraordinarily well. Their load factors, the percentage of people on those airplanes was in excess of 80, 83, 85%, which is great for a jet service to Mexico City. It was a couple of hours, wheels up, wheel down to Mexico City. I know, excuse me, it's allergy season in the Valley. I know that the demand for that is still there. I know Aeromexico wants to fly that route. Our travelers were satisfied with what it looked like. I also understand what the federal government needed to do in making the decision they made in issuing the order. But the airline in Mexico, as a country, have worked diligently to address the issues raised by the American government. And as I understand today, 2 out of the 3 conditions placed by DOT on Mexico to have that order lifted have been satisfied, and they're working through some of the complexities of the last element, but we continue to engage with our partners in the federal government to advocate for allowing that flight to resume. And we believe pretty strongly that if DOT will allow that to happen, that Aeromexico will be back at the table.
In the interim, once this flight starts here at the end of March, it sounds like we will have at least the opportunity, because some people, if they're going into Mexico City, they might, try to go through the Reynosa airport. But sometimes, it's like, if you're gonna take your car, are you gonna, park it there, or you can't technically take an Uber ride from the U.S. side to the Mexican side, even though it's very close. It's not like you couldn't. It's just a lot of times they won't take you across the bridge, right? So there's a little bit of logistics there, but it sounds like with Aerus, you can essentially, let's say you're going to Mexico City, you check into the McAllen airport, you go through security, you have your bag checked, and then you can stop in Monterrey and take a couple days, and then head on to Mexico City, and they will actually transfer your luggage. So it sounds like as an interim, there's still that access.
Absolutely. The opportunity for Aerus arose when Mexico City pulled out. We're in the process of expanding, doubling the capacity of our terminal in McAllen. We've got so many slots that we can fill. We've got to find places to park airplanes when they're here. And so we got to a time when this flight worked out. As we move forward, we're working on plans to expand space for us to remote aircraft, move them between the gates and parking areas so that we can meet the demand for the supply of travelers that's there. And over the next couple of years, we'll embark on a project to expand the size of our terminal, the number of gates that we have, and we look forward to continuing to expand the amount of service that we can offer there from the airport.
Wow. And how much would a project like that potentially cost?
Another couple $100 million. The nice thing is we've got support from the FAA, and they're committed to about $85 million in funding towards that project. So it's a very doable project for the airport, and we think it'll be fantastic for our travelers.
And the debt service from that would essentially be tied to the airport because they're an enterprise fund. It's not coming from the general fund. That's right. And so
that's right.
Just to confirm. So something else I had seen, I don't know if y'all had released renderings or if people are just using AI.
The tunnels?
Yes, the pedestrian tunnels.
I will confirm that those are AI.
Okay.
We have not released renderings. I'm not even aware that we have renderings, but I'll tell you, I liked some of the renderings that are floating around out on social media. They look really, really nice.
Okay, so tell us more about this proposed pedestrian tunnel. I understand it will be about what, $4.5 million. I want to say, was there construction documents filed for it? I think that was okay. That was the sort of kickoff when everyone reads the TDLR. Like their morning newspaper.
Yeah. So there are 3 potential sites for those. One to connect the convention center area to the other side of Ware, one to connect the golf course to what will be the new golf course, and another up on North 10th Street to connect or make sure that there's interconnectivity uninterrupted interconnectivity of the hike and bike trail that runs from Bicentennial just north of Wisconsin, and then over to Edinburgh and 2nd Street in McAllen. So there eventually will be 3 of those. We want to do what we can to support use of our recreation offerings, and so the connectivity between the 2 golf courses is going to be critical to moving people between Palmview and we don't have a name yet for the golf course that Lorena Ochoa is designing for us, but for that facility. Connectivity between Westside Park and what eventually gets developed on the site of the old Parks and Recreation Administration Building and the offerings at the Convention Center. I anticipate more hotels across the street, more retail across the street, and so to allow connectivity between those 2 areas, and then, like I said, to make sure that we have unimpeded connectivity of the linear trail system in McAllen.
That's really interesting. Okay, so I will await the real renderings and we'll
Me
be
too.
sure to share with our audiences. But yeah, no, just this, there's so many changes happening in the Valley, and there is a lot of push toward the live, work, play lifestyle. Y'all have Tres Lagos, that's being developed out. I see more and more sort of retail filings for that project. And I kind of wonder, the city went through some rezoning as well. I understand it was like to kind of unify the code. It sort of, so correct me if I'm wrong. So we had these like zones, right? So and so for some types of businesses in those zones, you needed a special use permit.
Right.
And so now we're back to conditional use permits. Is that correct?
So a couple of things happened. The codes that govern development in McAllen were developed in the 1970s and then modified throughout the years to meet the changing needs of the community that we live in. Recently, within the last 18 months, the city adopted a unified development code. That is a modern take on what a development code will look like, which includes within it zones to kind of help plan how industrial areas, mixed-use areas, for example, are spaced, residential areas, commercial areas, things like that. Under the old codes, mixed use, for example, was not available as a matter of right. If you wanted to develop a mixed use development in McAllen, you had to come to the city commission and apply for a planned use development and then get special permission from the city to do a mixed use development. Well, under the new code, much more user-friendly, development trends moving towards mixed use, that's now a zone available to a developer by right. And so when we adopted the Unified Development Code, all of the zones affecting properties in the city got shifted a little bit to the right or a little bit to the left, and they all need to be reestablished so that they align with the current code. So for example, if you live in a single family house in McAllen, that property will be rezoned under the new code to match the single family zone under the new code. Why is that important for that landowner? Because that gives that landowner the rights to do on that property all of the things that the new code allows to happen, which in most cases are a little bit less stringent. They require less parking, the setbacks might be more friendly, and so it allows those landowners to take advantage of that. With the downtown area, that was rezoned to match what that area under the code was supposed to be. It allows all of the operations of the retail businesses, the restaurants, the bars, everybody who's in that area can continue to do what they were doing as a matter of right under the old code, now under the new code. What changes is the special use permit, which bars in the old entertainment district needed to apply for, no longer have to apply for that. The process for doing that was a little bit messy. Bar owners struggle to comply with the requirements, get information to the planning department so those permits could be reviewed and approved. What they will now have to do is what every other bar in the city was already doing, and that is apply for a conditional use permit to operate. The requirements for a conditional use permit can be the same as what was a requirement for a special use permit. The difference is there are clear deadlines for when things need to happen. So bar owners will now have the incentive to get information to the planning department so decisions can be made. And the planning department will be up against similar deadlines to get those applications to the Planning and Zoning Commission and then to the City Commission for approval, because once applications under that process come in, they have to be moved through the system.
That's interesting. And, you know, I know there was like some pushback from some bar owners saying they didn't like that new process and all of that, but I had noticed.
Well, the feedback I got was that they thought that there was no plan, it was just random rezoning. I want to make very clear to the residents and developers listening, that rezoning was going to happen whether there was a redevelopment or reinvestment plan for downtown or not. Under the new code, every property within the city was going to be rezoned, is going to be rezoned. I guess it applies both ways depending on whether we've already done it or we're going to do it in the future. We started at the south end of the city, we're moving towards the north end of the city. It just so happened that we got to that part of the city when we were having conversations about what was going on downtown. Separate from that, we have engaged Men Collaborative to come down. They specialize in helping cities work with residents, stakeholders, to invest in and reinvest in downtowns and make sure that the plan, the partnership between the landowners and the city is putting those properties to their highest and best use, because that's for the benefit of the landowner, for the business owner, and the city.
Okay, and so that's the consultant that y'all had put out the RFP for to
Correct.
help sort of re-envision downtown and kind
Correct.
of move that project forward.
Correct.
Interesting.
And that's going to be a good collaborative process. MEND is going to meet with city stakeholders individually so that there can be unfettered conversations. They're going to meet with stakeholders without the city being present, so input can be shared freely without fear of judgment from the city. And then they're going to compile the information and then work with the various groups in combinations to come up with a workable plan.
You know, what do you think is sort of on the horizon? You know, what do you envision, you know, the city of McAllen to be in terms of economic development in 1 year? You know, I imagine maybe something like hitting that $100 million mark. You know, you mentioned the March retail or really just sales tax allocation to the city was up 5%.
5.5.
5.5. Okay.
Don't short me 0.5%.
Well, because it adds up, right? Because like that 5%, to be clear, is like what, $7.8 million.
Almost 7.9
and so that's a significant source of revenue.
It's a significant source of revenue. Look, what I don't want to do is fall into the trap of saying that the only thing we care about is making money. That's not what the focus is. The focus is making sure that we're engaging in investments to create opportunities for our residents, for our businesses, for our investors to be successful. When they're successful, we're successful, and that allows us to reinvest in our infrastructure and expand our infrastructure so that they can be successful. That's the name of the game. So where do I want to be in a year? I want to be in a year from now in a place where I can do more than I'm doing today, that I can attract businesses, industry coming here and provide opportunities that we don't have today. I want to be able to provide them tomorrow. How am I going to do that? I'm going to do that by continuing, I'm going to say it again, I know I've said it 4 or 5 times now, to invest in our infrastructure. I'm going to continue to invest in our public safety. We are very proud to be the 3rd safest city in the United States of America. I'm going to continue to collaborate with our education stakeholders and make sure that RGV, South Texas College, A&M, and all of the technical schools here in the Valley are providing the best opportunity for our kids that want to learn a trade or earn a degree so that they're ready to meet the needs of the industry that we want to bring here. We've got some really exciting announcements coming in the next week about some industry that's coming to the Valley that hasn't been here yet. But we know that with this first one that there are going to be more and more to come. And what we're going to talk about next week will be the largest industrial investment in Hidalgo County in decades.
Really?
And so where I want to be a year from now is better than we're doing today, providing more opportunity for our residents, for them to be successful.
Is it a manufacturer by chance?
It is.
Okay. Is it going to be off of Ware Road?
It is.
Then I think we might have a story about that on the Rio Grande Valley Business Journal website already. So thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate it. And stay tuned and subscribe to the Rio Grande Valley Business Journal. Thanks so much, y'all.